Red Bull is staring at the one Monaco. Even Max Verstappen may not be able to outdrive because Mercedes has just had its secret brake heat trick exposed, and the timing could not be more dangerous. Right before Monaco, the race where overtaking is almost impossible, the race where qualifying can decide everything, the race where one perfect braking zone can become pole position, and pole position can become victory. Now look at Red Bull. Canada gave Verstappen a podium, but it also exposed the truth. The RB22 was still unstable. The bumps were so violent that Max said his feet were slipping on the pedals. Red Bull admitted they are still exploring the car, still changing directions, still giving their drivers a machine that does not feel the same every time it leaves the garage. And that is a nightmare before Monaco, because if Mercedes can control brake heat better, they can give their drivers the one thing Verstappen needs most. Trust. Trust to brake later. Trust to rotate cleaner. Trust to attack the walls without leaving a margin. And if Red Bull is still searching while Mercedes is already controlling that invisible temperature window, Monaco may not be a race for Verstappen. It may be a trap, because the real Mercedes advantage may not be speed. It may be calm. And in Monaco, the calmest car could be the most dangerous car on the grid. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this is such a dangerous moment for Red Bull, you have to look beyond the headline, because the problem is not simply that Mercedes may have found something clever. Formula One teams find clever things all the time. That is a sport. Every car is full of tiny ideas designed to create a small edge somewhere, in airflow, in cooling, in suspension behavior, in tire preparation, in energy use. Most of the time, those ideas stay hidden until a rival gets close enough to understand why the lap time is appearing. But this Mercedes brake heat trick is different, because it appears at the exact point where Red Bull is most vulnerable, the braking zone. And that is where Canada became so important. Max Verstappen did not leave Canada saying the RB22 was perfect. He did not leave saying Red Bull had found the magic answer. He did not even leave sounding like a driver who believed the podium changed the bigger picture. He left with a result, yes, but also with a warning, because the car was still difficult. The bumps were still disturbing the cockpit. The pedals were still a problem. Verstappen had already admitted that his feet were slipping on the pedals, and that one detail tells a whole story better than any timing sheet. A driver can only be as precise as the connection beneath him. The steering wheel gives information through the hands. The seat gives information through the body. The tires speak through vibration, movement, grip, and sliding. But the pedals, especially the brake pedal, are where the driver begins to control the violence of the lap. If that connection feels unstable, the entire car feels unstable. And Monaco is the worst place in the world to carry that feeling, because Monaco does not let a driver build confidence slowly. It demands trust in the first real push lap. The walls are not far away in the distance. They are right there, waiting, listening, punishing the smallest mistake. A car that feels slightly uncertain at another circuit can still survive. A car that feels slightly uncertain in Monaco becomes a threat to its own driver. That is why Red Bull's situation is so dangerous. Canada showed a team still searching. Red Bull admitted they are still exploring the car, still testing directions, still trying to understand what works and what is not. That kind of honesty is rare, but it is also frightening, because when a team says the drivers are effectively facing a different car every time they leave the garage, it means the concept is not yet settled, and a car that keeps changing is hard to trust. For Verstappen, that is almost insulting, not because he cannot adapt. He can adapt better than almost anyone, but because he should not be spending a season proving wrong setup directions just to confirm what he already felt. He should not be climbing into a car, wondering which weakness has appeared now. He should not be managing a machine that asks him for patience when his entire driving style is built around certainty, aggression, and instant reaction. That is the deeper trouble. Red Bull has a champion who wants a weapon, but too often they are giving him a question. And now Mercedes may have the answer in exactly the place Red Bull needs it most. Brake heat. It sounds technical, almost invisible, but it is one of the most human parts of a Formula One car, because the driver does not feel temperature as a number. He feels it as confidence. When the brakes are in the right window, The pedal responds cleanly. The bite arrives when expected. The front tires accept the load. The rear stays calm enough for the driver to turn in. The car feels repeatable, and repeatability is what lets a driver attack. When the brakes are out of the window, everything becomes negotiation. The pedal feels different. The balance shifts. The rear may move. The tires may suffer. The drivers start protecting the car before anything obvious goes wrong, and the lap time disappears quietly. That is why Mercedes' alleged brake heat advantage would be so powerful at Monaco. It would not need to produce some spectacular visual trick. It would not need to make the car look illegal from a distance. It would simply need to give the driver the same feeling corner after corner. Same bite, same stability, same confidence. And in Monaco, sameness is gold, because the driver is building a lap millimeter by millimeter. He needs to know that Saint-Devote will not surprise him. He needs to know the car will slow properly into Mirabeau. He needs to know the Nouvelle chicane will accept a brave braking point. He needs to know Rasgas will not expose a nervous rear at the very end of the lap. If Mercedes can give its drivers that certainty, Red Bull has a major problem, because Verstappen's greatest strength is confidence under pressure. He is at his most dangerous when the car gives him a clear platform and lets him attack the corner without hesitation. Give him that, and he becomes almost impossible to intimidate. But take away the clarity, and even Verstappen has to manage. That is what Red Bull cannot allow in Monaco. A managing Verstappen can still be brilliant, but a trusting Verstappen can win. And right now, the fear is that Mercedes may be closer to giving its drivers trust in Red Bull is to giving Max his. That is the real gap, not just points, not just pace. Trust. Canada's podium could not hide that gap. Verstappen drove intelligently. He took what the race offered. He benefited when opportunities opened ahead. He fought until the end. But the podium did not erase the reality that Red Bull is still far from the clean technical confidence of its dominant years. And the championship table makes that pain sharper. Mercedes is far ahead. Red Bull is not leading the fight. Verstappen is not in a realistic title position. The team is no longer controlling the season. They are reacting to it. That is a brutal change for a team used to being a reference point. And when a dominant team becomes reactive, every rival advantage feels bigger. That is why the brake heat story does so much damage. It tells Red Bull that Mercedes may not only be ahead, they may be ahead in understanding. They may have discovered how to manage a hidden temperature window that gives the car stability at exactly the moment the driver needs it. They may have found a way to turn heat into confidence, and confidence into qualifying performance. That is the kind of advantage that spreads. It does not just help at Monaco. It can help anywhere braking stability, tire control, and corner entry confidence matter. Street circuits, slow corners, high-pressure qualifying laps, races where tire temperature is difficult to manage, weekends where the driver needs a car to be predictable immediately. So Red Bull cannot treat it as a one-race problem. If Mercedes really owns this area, then Red Bull has to respond quickly. But that is the difficulty. Their major upgrade focus is expected later, not immediately for Monaco. The car may arrive in the Principality without the kind of transformation that solves everything overnight. That means Verstappen may need to produce something special with a car that still carries unresolved habits. And Monaco is not generous to unresolved habits. Bumps matter there. Rear stability matters. Brake feel matters. Pedal confidence matters. A driver cannot simply overpower the circuit with talent if the car is giving him different answers from one braking zone to the next. That is why this feels like big trouble. Because Red Bull's possible Monaco strengths are real but fragile. The lack of long straights should reduce the pain of their engine deficit. The slow and medium speed corners could help if the balance is right. The reduced energy management could make the car less frustrating for Verstappen. And if he qualifies well, Monaco's lack of overtaking could protect him. But every one of those positives depends on one condition. The car must be trustworthy. If it is not, none of the advantages matter. A track can suit your car on paper, but paper does not break into Saint-Devote. Paper does not hold the rear steady over bumps. Paper does not give a driver confidence when the wall is rushing toward him. The car does. And if the car hesitates, the driver hesitates. That is why Mercedes' calm could be so damaging, not because it is dramatic, but because it is quiet. A Mercedes that brakes consistently makes its driver look relaxed. A Red Bull that moves around makes Verstappen look like he is fighting. And over a Monaco qualifying lap, the calm car can take tiny pieces of time everywhere. A tenth here, half a tenth there, a cleaner entry, a better exit, a tire that stays in the window, a brake pedal that feels the same at the end of the lap as it did at the beginning. That can be the difference between starting first and starting fifth. And in Monaco, starting fifth can feel like the race is already locked away. This is why Red Bull's trouble is not only mechanical, it is psychological. Verstappen has already sounded frustrated with the direction of Formula One. He has questioned the current power units. He has spoken about racing that does not feel pure enough. He has made it clear that his patience with certain future directions is not unlimited. Now his own car is adding to that frustration. A car that is still being explored. A car that can improve one area and lose another. A car that left him fighting pedal instability in Canada. A car that now has to face Monaco while Mercedes is suspected of having better control of the very thing Red Bull needs most. That combination is dangerous for a team's internal belief, because drivers do not only judge teams by promises, they judge them by direction. Does the car get clearer? Do the changes make sense? Are the engineers moving toward the feeling the driver needs? Is the team giving the champion a machine that deserves his level? Those are the questions Verstappen will feel, even if he does not say them every time. And Monaco will make the answer visible. If the RB22 looks planted, if Verstappen can attack the walls, if the pedal connection looks clean, Red Bull can turn the narrative. Canada becomes the first sign of recovery. Monaco becomes a proof. Mercedes' brake heat story becomes pressure, not destiny. But if the Red Bull looks nervous, if Verstappen leaves margin, if Mercedes looks calm in the same braking zones, then the story becomes much darker, because then the exposed brake heat trick will not just be about Mercedes. It will show what Red Bull is missing. That is the nightmare inside the headline. Red Bull may not only be fighting an opponent, they may be looking at a mirror of the performance quality they do not yet have. Mercedes calm, Red Bull searching, Mercedes predictable, Red Bull experimental, Mercedes controlling heat, Red Bull fighting trust. That contrast is what makes Monaco so dangerous. The Principality is not a place where Red Bull can talk its way into confidence. It is not a place where Verstappen can wait until Sunday to reshape the race. It is not a place where a team can say, the upgrade is coming later, and expect the circuit to be patient. Monaco asks now, do you trust the car now? Can you brake later now? Can you place it near the wall now? Can you deliver one lap now? That is why the Mercedes brake heat exposure lands like a threat.